In my dreams, I heard your footsteps coming closer. In my dreams, I tried to talk to you and introduce myself, but nothing I know of you, apart from your cold, nameless visage, apart from your calloused and wounded hands, apart from the mourning of your deaths. No, I know nothing of you, only the miracle knows.
The Penitent One is the person who we experience the world of Custodia through, and yet, much like Escobar, we do not know very much about this solemn warrior and where he comes from. Yet if we dig deeper into what we know, we can maybe get a better understanding of the role of the Penitent One in the story and what his beliefs are. The game begins with the Penitent One being found among the dead of the congregation known as the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. The Kickstarter describes the Penitent One as follows. The Penitent One is the last survivor of a congregation known as the Silent Sorrow. The whole group was punished to be thrown into the great abyss of the eternal grief. So the Kickstarter suggests that he is the survivor of a massacre that claimed the entire Brotherhood. And while the Penitent One seems to be of the Brotherhood, it isn't straightforward as him just being there at the time while the massacre happened, and that he survived. We get a little bit more information about the Penitent One's survival from the prequel comic known as The Kneeling, so bear with me while we dive into it. Of course, spoilers for those who haven't read it. The Kneeling presents the following chain of events. Des Amparados is a character in the comic who leads the Penitent One to a chapel that houses the Sword of Guilt. She directs him to put on the Mask of Penance before taking him to the chapel. Let us pause and look at the Penitent One's helmet. There's a large point upwards towards the sky, and while this draws from real-world inspirations, it does have lore implications for the game and the in-game lore as well. It seems to be symbolic of a penitent. Dio Gratius himself wears a similar hood, and he describes himself and the Penitent One as we penitents. Thus it seems to be a symbol of a penitent. We get a little more in the prequel comic. Chrysanta, who also has a pointed helmet, describes the meaning of these pointed designs. She says, "Our faceless helmets point sharply at the same sky, for we are both penitents before the eyes of our miracle of the greatest pain." So the Penitent One's helmet is symbolic of the fact he is undergoing a penance, and it points upwards to the sky. And him donning this helmet is symbolic as it marks the beginning of his penance. Once at the chapel, he takes the mea culpa from the remains of the woman we see at the beginning of the game. Des Amparados then names us Penitent One, before Chrysanta appears, and after a brief duel, she strikes us down and gravely wounds us. She then drags the Penitent One's body to the remains of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow and throws him amongst the bodies of his brethren. So what happens here? Why does Chrysanta try to murder us? And why was the Brotherhood massacred? I briefly discussed this in my miracle video, and I highly recommend you check that out, but let's go over it again since it is pertinent to the Penitent One. The whole Brotherhood is murdered, slaughtered as punishment for some perceived crime, presumably under the orders of the Church of the Mother of Mothers. Chrysanta says this of the Brotherhood when she throws you down to join their bodies. Again, from the Kneeling comic, I read this: "Sleep and share your dream with those who failed in penance. They who continue to hide their faces and prolong their lives long after their clothes have turned to dust." The Brotherhood is described as a congregation by the Kickstarter, and the dictionary meaning of a congregation is a group of people assembled for religious worship. So the way I think of the Brotherhood is that they are a specific enclave or sect of characters who have their own understanding of worship and penance, as part of the wider religion of Custodia, which worships the miracle. To me, they are comparable to the members of the Covenant of Our Lady of the Charred Visage, who again have their own beliefs and practices that fit into the wider religion of Custodia. And so I see the Silent Brotherhood as another separate sect of this religion. This congregation has a long history that dates back to the time of the first miracle and the coming of the Twisted One. The Key of the Chamber of the Eldest Brother lore portion gives us an insight into this. The following seems to be the thoughts or speech of the Eldest Brother, and so it reads as follows: "I hear his lament, the one who was believed mute from the beginning. since they were witnesses to the first miracle, the afflicted one who asked for punishment, and had it granted to him. I hear his lament. Even if the Father is no longer with us, I hear his lament. It is the miracle that makes me hear it. This is my punishment as the eldest brother and guardian of this congregation, whose mystery is the silence of the Father. I hear his lament, and I don't want to hear it anymore. This segment of lore, presumably spoken by the eldest brother, explains the penance of silence of the silent sorrow, and the name of the congregation. The eldest brother states that it was believed that the Father was always silent. This is because the Father suffered his punishment silently. This is reflected in what we hear from Dio Gracias, who tells us of the Twisted One's sacrifice.
It made roots grow and twist over his arms and legs, but not a cry nor a complaint came out from his mouth.
Hence the silent sorrow. The Father, or the Twisted One, suffered his penance and punishment in silence. He uttered not a word or a cry or a scream, and yet it is the penance of the eldest brother to hear these silent screams, and it is the penance of the Brotherhood to be silent in their penance much as the Father was. And so it seems that the Father is their central figure of their sect. They honour his silent sorrow by suffering their penance in silence as well. They do still practice the same religion as the Mother Church, obviously both venerate the Father, but it is just a separate sect that has their own practices and individual beliefs. Again, much like the nuns of the charred visage, now that we understand the background of the Brotherhood the Penitent One seemingly belongs to, let us kind of talk about the Penitent One himself as an individual member. The Penitent One seems to have been singled out as part of the miracle's plan. Des Amparados in the Kneeling comic points to the fact that the Penitent One's vow of silence has been made irreversible as a signal of the fact the miracle has turned its view on him. This suggests that because the miracle has chosen the Penitent One, that it has chosen to accept his vow of silence, but impermanent, marking him as part of its plan. So he survives the massacre, but what massacre is he surviving? Why was the Silent Brotherhood killed? Well, let us return to some of the hints that Chrysanta drops in the Kneeling comic. She says this of the Silent Sorrow Brotherhood: those that prolong their lies, suggesting that the institution of the Mother of Mothers disagreed with the beliefs of the Brotherhood, naming them lies. This could be akin to sectarian differences found in different schools of the same religion in real life. We could leave it at that, and that this is a disagreement between two schools of thought. However, I touched on another matter in my miracle video, so let's kind of go into some more detail on why the Brotherhood may have been slaughtered. Chrysanta also touches on another aspect of the Brotherhood in the comic. She also says, they who continue to hide their face of the Silent Brotherhood. When we meet Escribar, he says that he knows nothing of the Penitent One, except his cold, nameless visage.
Nothing I know of you, apart from your cold, nameless visage.
Meaning the mask of the Silent Brotherhood, and so there's nothing to differentiate the Penitent One from the other members of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. He said that he has seen the Penitent One in his dreams, but all he has seen is the cold, indistinguishable mask of someone from the Silent Brotherhood. And so is it not possible that he has foreseen the end of his life at the hands of the Penitent One, but not knowing who he is, he has had the entire Silent Brotherhood slaughtered? Possible, and so he had Chrysanta and others slaughter the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. This is just my take, and I will leave it up to you to decide the rest. However, despite the best effort of the Mother of Mothers Church and Chrysanta to end the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow, the Penitent One does indeed survive, and he carries the torch, possibly carrying on the beliefs of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. Chrysanta and the Penitent One both represent their schools, in a lot of ways walk the opposite journey. The Penitent One seeks to reach the top of the ash pile and kill Escribar, where Chrysanta seems to want to oppose this and stop this from happening altogether. In the comic, Chrysanta says this really important and symbolic line. She says, "Our penances, however, are different, opposite, and yet complementary. To me, this is symbolic of the relationship of the Brotherhood and the Mother of Mothers. They are opposing forces, mirrors of each other, represented by the Penitent One and Chrysanta. The Mother of Mothers institution believes that the current stage of penance under the monsters and the pile of ash is wholly suffering and needs to be protected. For Chrysanta says this of us, carrying the guilty sword: "You have committed the most serious crimes against the Mother and her saints, against the miracle and its outbreaks. I would therefore pose that they both serve the miracle but differently. While slaughtering monsters is blasphemy to the Mother of Mothers Church, it is part of the Penitent One's rite of penance. Seeking to preserve the current age of ash and the monsters within it, Escribar dispatches Chrysanta, and this is the fate of the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow. They are massacred. And yet they couldn't fight fate, for the Penitent One himself is chosen. His silent pilgrimage begins in leaving the prison of the Silent Brotherhood, and must defeat the Warden of the Silent Brotherhood. This being is a prison guard of sort, posted by Escribar's command to stop any survivors escaping or anyone entering. This is evident from the title of Warden, and the fact we face two others later, guarding the prison of the High Wall. Indeed, it looks like this being is actually finishing off survivors or making sure they are dead when we interrupt them. With the prison guard defeated, the Penitent One takes off his helmet and fills it with blood, then places it on his head to let the blood seep down his face and mask. This is symbolic. The Warden's death is a sacrifice, an offering, that marks the beginning of the Penitent One's holy quest. He then consecrates this offering by baptizing himself in the blood of the sacrificial offering, before starting his pilgrimage towards the ash pile and the cradle of the miracle. The prequel comic heavily suggests, as I've mentioned, that the Penitent One has been singled out by the miracle. Des Amparados tells us that the miracle has taken note of us, and the first proof of this, as we've discussed, is the fact the Penitent One's vow of silence is made permanent by the miracle. Next, as Chrysanta throws a heavily wounded Penitent One onto the bodies of the Brotherhood, she states that if the miracle has truly singled us out, then we will rise again. And indeed we do, somehow shaking off the terrible wounds that we suffered from Chrysanta in the prequel comic The Kneeling. The Penitent One also seems to be in the possession of a holy relic, the guilty sword, Mea Culpa. This is a sword that was created by the will of the miracle. We see the creation of this sword at the beginning of a game, as the woman kneels on her knees, asking for the miracle to punish her, and so punishment is granted, and a sword pierces her bodies from the hilt of a statue of the Father, or the Twisted One. She then becomes the kneeling stone, which houses the guilty sword for one who will take it. This one that takes it is the Penitent One. This will be by design. Nothing the miracle does is without design. This whole age, the Age of Ash, was designed to make people suffer, until one that was truly penitent would end the age of suffering. That individual is the Penitent One. And, with everything with the miracle, it would not be easy for him to end this age of torment. There will be monsters and Escribar in his way, Escribar who also serves the miracle in its own way. But perhaps this is why the Penitent One has been gifted the Sword of Guilt, to destroy Escribar and the monsters, and bring an end to this age of suffering by allowing the wielder to sacrifice himself in a final form of penance. When the Penitent One rises from the dead in the Brotherhood of the Silent Sorrow, they make their way outside, and by providence Deo Gratias is there, who guides us on the path, who tells us the word of the miracle, and he says this:
"The cradle of affliction is what you seek. This can be found in the Mother of Mothers of the churches. Take this thorn and place it on the handle of your sword. If, when the time comes, as you grip your weapon firmly, you notice that it wounds you and makes you bleed, that will mean that you are at the mercy of the grievous miracle, whether for its punishment or its forgiveness."
So, as if by divine grace, not only does he tell us where we need to travel, but how we should undertake our penance and how to appease the miracle. He handily gives us the thorn. I did discuss this in my miracle video, but again, let us touch on it. The thorn grows with one's burden. The Penitent One can understand the weight of true guilt by undertaking a series of trials underneath the confessor statues. Upon completing these tasks, we are increasing our burden of guilt. The thorn evolves into a twisting knot of vines that cut deeply into his flesh as he wields the weapon as an eternal penance with every swing of his sword, and this is meant to place us at the mercy of the miracle and increase our burden, making it a more powerful penance. If the Penitent One did not complete his proper penance, by increasing the burden through growing the thorn and making it cut into his flesh, he will be swallowed by the ash, weighed down by his guilt, as he does not understand the true weight of guilt. As it is, the true ending, the Penitent One is chosen by the miracle. He understands the weight of guilt, the true weight of his guilt, and those of the society. He has completed the penance proper, by undertaking severe trials that increase his pain, with the thorns digging into his flesh with every swing, and there are many swings to take. And so he is able to climb the mountain of ash and sacrifice his life. He communes with the miracle he was chosen by, and much like the Twisted One, he is blessed with a punishment, a harsh punishment. His body painfully transforms into the wooden roots, and there is a reason this is so comparable with the Twisted One's punishment. The Twisted One became the father, the first father, as a result of the first miracle. Deogracius in the epilogue now calls us the new father. Perhaps this was the teachings of the Silent Brotherhood. They knew the answer lay elsewhere than the pile of ash, and that the miracle could be appeased by a true penitent, and this is what earned them the ire of the Mother of Mothers. But that is just speculation. Both ourselves and the Twisted One become pinnacle figures of worship, called the Father, both of them are, for they are both the recipients of a great punishment that results in the beginning of a new age. Both of these holy punishments twist our bodies into big wooden roots, condemned to a horrific fate to become instruments of worship due to our horrific punishments at the hands of the miracle. Deogracius' epilogue tells us that this current age of penance has come to an end. The Penitent One was the one chosen to suffer the miracle's full punishment on behalf of the rest of society and end this age of ash. But much as the Twisted One's fate before us, this will not be enough to satiate the miracle for long. As Deogracius notes, the will of the miracle is capricious, the penance will take a new form, and we can only hope there is a new Penitent One to understand the penance required by the miracle to make the necessary sacrifice. Thanks guys, that's my take on the Penitent One, the silent protagonist of the game Blasphemous. If you like this video, please give it a like and a subscribe, as I'll be doing more Blasphemous content. If you haven't checked it out, please check out the miracle video. I know I've plugged it a few times, but please check it out. It does explain a lot of the other things I talk about here in a lot more greater depth. Don't forget to join my Discord server if you'd like to join the debate with other people who love lore. And finally, a thanks to my patrons who help support the channel, and thanks to you guys for listening to this video. Hope you have a nice evening, and see you again soon.